welcome back, everybody. Again, I have Jay, and following on from our last topic or question, I'd just like to kind of get his feelings on the age of the earth, because there are people who have an exegesis of scripture that says that we have a 6,000 or just over 6,000-year-old earth, and I wondered what Jay's feelings are on that. So Jay, can you answer that one for us, please?
I mean, that's a question that's come up an awful lot, and you'll see probably people at Speaker's Corner. Christians will say one thing and other Christians will say another on this very thing, and it stems from the reference in the Genesis account of the generations that come after Adam. And you see that generations that come after Adam, there are 14 generations from Adam to Abraham. There are 14 generations from Abraham to Jesus. 14, the reason why, you'll see in just a moment. But if you add up those 14 generations and you do what an average age of a human span would be, lifespan would be, it would mean that Adam and Eve were living in 6,000 BC, right, which is not very long ago. And more than that, you can see, if you go to the British Museum, you'll see, in fact, they have a corpse of a individual, the bog man, the bog man, they call it.
Yeah.
The peat man. If you look at his body, and you can see he has hair on his body and everything, he's a human, and that's 500 BC. 5,000 BC, I'm excusing, not 500, 5,000 BC. So you can see it's even older than Adam and Eve, and here's a human that's older than Adam and Eve. And the problem with this, and this is one of the things that I will say to other Christians who probably won't like what I'm going to say next, if you're going to look at the genealogy and take it literalistically, then you need to understand what the genealogy is for and why that Moses wrote the genealogy that way. And the reason is very simple, because Moses is not, of course, he would not know the genealogy of David because he precedes David. But what he does know, and you can see the genealogy list that is there, if he was not interested in a comprehensive list, he was listed in the men of God. And that's why the genealogy only refers to those who were important to God's plan. I guess an equivalent would be, if you come to the United States and you go to those 4 images on Mount Rushmore in the northwestern United States. There's 4 presidents there on Mount Rushmore, right? But those 4 presidents are not the exhaustive list of all the presidents of the United States. We're up to 51 now. But if you didn't know the history of the United States and you had come off the boat and that's the first thing you saw, you would think, so there's only 4 presidents. Without thinking through, no, whoever made that piece of art, whoever created that and carved it out, was only interested in those 4 because those are 4 important presidents. In the same way, Moses was doing this with the genealogy from Adam all the way up to Abraham. He was only including those who were important up to Abraham in the list because they are men of God. If you look at every one of those people that are on that list, God used every one of them. But there have been hundreds of millions probably in between. That's why you need to be careful how you read the Bible. Don't just think that it's literalistic and it's an exhaustive list. Now, why 14? Well, 14 is double the number of 7. 7 is the perfect number. So he chose really 2 sets of 7 and put those in the list, knowing that they were all names that all the Jews would have known because they probably learned it in Sunday school. Well, it wouldn't have been Sunday school, it would be Saturday school or the Sabbath school. I'm being facetious here. But whatever it is, as they were learning as little children, they would know the names of all these great men of God. And that's why he did it. So when he says so-and-so was the father of so-and-so, was the father and so-so, listen, even today, in English, a father means a biological father. But in almost every other language, it could be your relative, it could be your ancestor, it could be your descendant. You are that, and that's why we need to be careful that we don't take so.
In English, we also can have the father of science, the father of modern pop music, or something of that description.
You're the father of Britain. I'm the son of the United States.
Church father, if you will. Yeah.
Okay, so that's something that we need to be careful that we don't read into it a literalistic viewpoint using the English language as our normative. English language is not normative. In fact, it's a very new language. Yeah. And it's very restrictive.
Yeah. My thoughts are also that between the books of the Old Testament, at least, not accounting for the apocryphal works, which were removed, so that for me accounts for time from the beginning to the end, as it were. Also the genealogies that are in Luke and I think Matthew. Could be
Matthew 1 and Luke 3.
Yeah, they're not exhaustive and they don't have the ages. So not all of the ages of those people, and that would only account for maybe a couple of hundred years, but For sure, I feel less certain.
Well, let's go into that because,
Yeah.
okay, those are two different lists. It's two different genealogies. And I know Muslims always hammer us on this and they say, you can see that they're both the genealogy of Jesus through his father Joseph to Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true. The father of Jesus was Joseph, and his father is Jacob.
Yes.
And that's in the Matthew 1 account. And it goes all the way up to Solomon, to David. And the reason why that list is there is because the Messiah has to come in the line of David.
Yes.
So that's why Matthew wrote it. But there's a problem. Immediately you can see there's a problem, because if you're coming from David through Solomon, you go through Jeconiah, and then Jeconiah, then on down to Jacob, Joseph, and then Jesus. And knowing that, Jeconiah had sons that were rebellious, and God said to Jeconiah, no one who sits on the throne of David will come through your line. In fact, in other words, he's saying that is the corrupted line. So it got corrupted by Jeconiah. Yeah. Knowing that, the disciples knew that. Luke, of course, knew that. And so Luke, hearing that, says, hold on a minute. God, the Messiah can't come through Jacob to Jeconiah to Solomon, because that's a corrupted line. But remember, Jesus didn't come through Joseph. Joseph had nothing to do with his genealogy.
Exactly that. Yep.
Was not there when Jesus, well, he was there, but he had nothing
not there when he was conceived.
Procreation. And that's why Luke then wrote the other account. And that one goes through Mary to Heli. So they thought it was Joseph. That's why he puts it in there. See, I'm telling you, he's writing this to the other disciples. He's saying, listen, you thought it was Joseph, but it's not. You know who Heli is. It's not Jacob. This is Heli. Heli is the father of Mary. And if you look at that line, Jeconiah is not in that line. It's a whole other list of characters. And it goes to Nathan and then to David. Nathan is the brother of Solomon. So correct. Nathan's line, which is the pure line that Jesus comes to, because Jesus was born of Mary, not of Joseph, but of Mary. So you have these two different genealogical lists. They are correct, but one is for the father of Jesus, who's not really his father, and the other is through the mother of Jesus, who really is his mother, which means he is the Messiah through both lines, but the one is corrupted, the other one's pure. And that's why Luke put it in there, just to remind, because this was evidently a discussion that was happening amongst the Jews in the first century. Luke comes into it not being a Jew himself. He was converted in. He is a scholar, and he sees from a scholarly standpoint, well, listen, to eradicate this problem, don't worry about Jesus's line through Joseph, because he's not from Joseph. Remember, his line is through his mother. And that mother's line is the correct line. So that's why it's good that we have both genealogies. I wish Luke could have been a little bit more clear and would not have put that little phrase in there. So you thought it was from Joseph. He's just doing a rhetorical.
Well, we're also told in Scripture, or advised strongly against endless discussions and arguments over genealogies and the law. So I mean, that kind of wraps that up as well. If you take all Scripture to be God-breathed, whether we come through Joseph or through Mary, the correct lineage, I assert, is Mary, because she's biologically related to Christ, whereas Joseph is only related by marriage and love and affection. So great, that's answered that for me as well. Thank you very much, and we'll be back shortly with another question. Right, did you want to, someone's just ringing me, sorry. Did you want to ask me something, or will I'm trying to think what my other one was. Homosexuality, do you want to go there, really? Or should we save it for another time?
I don't really care. We can do whatever you want to ask.
So do you want to ask me about being a woman, or should we'll go into more biblical?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay. Right.